Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone to our GAIS Spotlight series. Today we have Brother Umar Sheraz from Kidding the Future, who is going to share with us some information about his organization and the work that he does. Brother Omar is a social change researcher, cross disciplinary collaborator, and foresight practitioner. In short, actually, we can call him the futurist, and he may be able to explain a little bit more about what that means soon, inshallah. Over the last 12 years, he's been involved in training, consulting, and report writing roles with international organizations like the Rockefeller Foundation, International Network for the Availability of Scientific Publications, think tank initiative programs, Institute of Alternative Futures, Bangladesh Enterprise Institute, Yazd University, Mount Allison University, to name a few. In Pakistan, he has worked with ARK Consulting, Pakistan Air Force, Madrasa Foundation, and many other NGOs. His emphasis is on opening the future space to explore alternative futures and strategies to achieve a preferable future. Now, many of you may not have ever been with or engaged with a futurist, so I think you're in for a treat. Welcome, Brother Omar, and please tell us a little bit about Kidding the Future and digital devices and sustainability.
Thank you very much, Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. It's a genuine pleasure being here. And Sister Leila, thank you very much for that amazing, introduction. Okay, it's set the bar really high, so let's try to cool things a bit down. So for beginners, for those of you who do not know what a futurist is, let me make one thing very, very clear right from the beginning. If you think I'm that sort of a person who's going to look at your hand and tell you what your future is going to be, sorry, you're in the wrong room. That is not me. I'm not in that business. But what I do is, as a futurist, is that I look at long-term futures. We try to look at, look beyond current trends and trajectories, and look at what might happen, what could happen, and what are some good things which might happen in the future. What are some disruptions which might disrupt our plans, and why do we think the way we think? So a lot of what I do is about these processes. Why do we think the way we think? Now, thank you for introducing Kidding the Future. Kidding the Future is a passion project of mine because some years ago I realized, I've been working with different organizations for quite some time, with adults actually. But a few years ago I realized that we have kids as well. We teach our kids a lot about history. We teach them about the past, but they'll not be living in the past. They'll be living in the future. They are the leaders of tomorrow. We are the ancestors of tomorrow as well. So, the thing was, then I started working with kids and teachers. So a lot of work which I do under the umbrella of Kidding the Future is with school children from class 5 to class 8. And it's really amazing when you work with kids, their perspectives, how they think about the future. Remember, it's their future. We need to ask them as well, what sort of future do they want? So that is why I kind of work with them. It's been a great experience, and I've got some great adventures, and I look forward to more adventures with different schools associated with the Global Association of Islamic Schools as well. So yeah, thank you for that. Now, the third question which you asked me was about digital devices. Okay, let me clarify one thing from the very big onset, that when we usually talk about climate change or sustainability, there is a mental image which comes in our mind that pollution or climate change is because there's this chimney, or there's this factory and it has a chimney and there is smoke coming out of it. That is usually our mental image which comes in our mind. Yes, that is true. That is one of the main criminals. But there are other things in play as well. One of those disowned aspects of climate change and sustainability is the digital devices, all those devices which all of us have. They are not there in hundreds or thousands, but they're there in millions. So it's very important that we have dialogues about them as well, and what are their roles in terms of sustainability, their greenhouse gas emissions. We rarely have dialogues around them. We usually think of them as green. So this, I would like to spend some time today on that disown aspect of sustainability. Thank you. Okay. Is it possible if you could have just come up with the presentation which we have? Could we share that, please? Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah, since this is a new thing for me, so yeah, I'll just ask you to just bear with me. So exploring digital devices and sustainability. And I think this is very important for us. I mean, my audience today is people from Islamic schools. I think it's a very, very important aspect for us that we look at climate change. Because you see, climate change is one of those issues which is universal. It is not an Islamic issue. It is not it's an issue for the whole of humanity. And as being as part of humanity, we need to play our role as well. Unfortunately, what I see is that climate change and sustainability issues are just one more tick mark, which we're just ticking off. I think we need to have a more aggressive role, a more leadership role in terms of sustainability as well. It is very important because a lot of our Muslim countries, they have issues of sustainability. They have some serious issues in terms of climate change. Many of our Muslim countries are vulnerable to climate change. We need to think about that today. So I think that's why it's very important we talk about that as well. Hang on a second. Let me go to the next slide. Okay. Yep. And yes, just one planet, no planet B. We can't go anywhere else. And climate change is one of those issues which has affected the whole planet. There is no place on Earth now, even if it's Antarctica or Canada or Switzerland or Greenland, whatever place in the world, you look across the globe, every country in the world is affected by climate change. So we need to think about it. Acha, today's topic, let me come to it. I've spent some time on climate change and sustainability, just to like to spend some time on the digital aspects of it as well. About 3 years ago, I came across this wonderful gaming session online. It's called the Digital Collage. And they were looking at the digital aspects of climate change. And that was an eye-opener for me. A real eye-opener, because before that, I always thought that climate change has got nothing to do with digital devices. Our digital devices are green. So right now, I'm sitting in front of a laptop. I mean, my thinking would be that why? I mean, what has my laptop got to do with it? Or what has got my webcam or the headphone which I'm wearing? Why would that be problematic? But then I came to know that yes, these are problematic as well. Okay, so here we go. Hang on a second. Let me go to my next slide. Just a second, please. Okay, so our digital devices are all around us. I mean, consciously, unconsciously, we are surrounded by digital devices. These are just a few, but all around us are our USBs, our mobile phones, chargers, webcams. We're having this communication. All of that is happening because we have all these digital devices. All right. So let's do a little, for the audience. Let's try to do a little activity. Okay. Okay. If it is possible, can we share the slide which is adjacent? Can we share that right now, or I'll just ask people on the go? Can we share that? Can you please hang on a second?
That
share.
That screen got cancelled. If you can share it again, I'll put it up.
All right, I'll do that. I will do that. I will do that in a minute. Okay. If you could share the screen, please. Yep. Just a second, please. There we go. Can you share the screen? So what I would like is for those people who are watching this telecast, if you could just scan this barcode, or you can just go to this website. It's called ahaslides.com.3rcg. If you just go there, and we are having I would just like to run some sort of analysis, just give some statistics. Let's make it a bit more interactive. So if you could just share this, have a look at it, and tell me how many smartphones do you own? This is my question to you. So do you have one smartphone, two phones, more than two phones? Let's see. Let's see how many replies you can. If it is not possible, you can reply on YouTube as well. The point is that I would just like to have some sort of thinking, that some sort of an idea and some sort of a dialogue, that how many devices do we have? So for example, when I work with youngsters, they usually have two phones with them. That is average. Two phones is average for a youngster. Okay, I've got one. Okay, one person has one. Let's see if we can. Let's wait for about 30 seconds. I realize this is a new, platform for many people. So yeah, okay. So somebody has two phones as well. Okay. Okay. Let's wait for about 2-3 more seconds, and that's for about 10 more seconds. Let's move on. I realized that the group which we're working on, we belong to that generation which is not very digital literate. We're trying to catch up with technology. So, okay. Usually what happens is when I work with youngsters, and remember this is very important because that is a cohort with which all of us are working with in schools, they usually have two or more than two phones. That is normal, the new normal. So guys like me, folks like me, you have one phone. Okay. So that is number one. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. Let's go to the next slide. I hope you can see this slide. Just a second, please. Let it appear in a second. Okay, let's make this a bit more interesting. How many digital devices do you own? All right. So do you have two digital devices, less than 5 devices, more than 5 devices? Okay, less than 5. Okay. Now, talking about USBs, your phone chargers, maybe I've got some electronic, a headphone like I'm wearing, a webcam, tabs, even, smart TVs. So this doesn't, by the way, count, what do you say, smartphones. Okay. So when I talk to teenagers, what they have is they have usually more than 5. They've got lots of digital devices. They're digital natives. They have lots of digital devices. Okay. So it really is amazing that the amount of devices that we have. So let's just do the math. So let's say in your class, if there are about 20 kids, all of them have about between 5 to or more than 5 devices. Just do the maths. And then if you look at more, look around you in a whole school, how many digital devices are there? How many digital devices are there just in our schools? So you'll be amazed at how many devices we deal with almost on a daily basis. It really is amazing. Okay. Can we go back to the PowerPoint slide? Is it possible? Can we do that? Okay. So just to give you folks some idea that this is the thing about devices. Can we go back? Yeah. All right. Brother, can we go back to the PowerPoint slide? Okay, just a second, please. Brother, are you there? Hello, are you there?
Yes,
having
I'm
a
here.
little issue.
Yes, yes.
Can you go back to the PowerPoint slide, please? Is it possible? Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. So it's amazing how many devices that all of us own. And so just to give you an idea, so this is, the way we are connected today. This diagram just gives you a simple idea about the different types of devices which we have just for this particular communication which we are having with each other. So for example, I'm based in Pakistan. There are people from the USA, other parts of the world who are listening to this broadcast. Now within us, there are so many devices. There are thousands and thousands of miles of cable which connects us, thousands and thousands of miles of electric cables, because we need electricity to run all of that. And then in between all the stuff, so you need those communication towers, Even within a house or within an organization, you will have, so many, devices, modems, routers, your PCs, lots of those devices which make our connection, which make our everyday, transactions or everyday dealings with digital devices possible. All that is possible because there are so many devices. All right. So we're dealing with a lot and lot of devices. So, but we rarely think to ponder that what is their, in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, what is their role? So, for example, all these devices which we have, they do not run on air or they do not run on water. You need some sort of electricity to charge up your devices, right? So, for example, I'm working on my laptop right now. It needs to be charged by, electricity. Uh, so right now there are about 34 billion plus phones. I'm sorry, mobile devices in the world. Now that is a lot of devices, lots of devices. Funny thing is that only half of the world is connected to the internet. The rest of the world does not have access to the internet. But even with that ratio, there are about more than 32 billion devices in the world, which is really amazing. And to charge them, to maintain them, all that requires immense amounts of energy. Most of that energy is coming from different fossil fuel sources. So let me get back to you. Okay, just to make this a little bit more, that when we look at the footprint of any object in the world, we then look at its ingredients. So, for example, if I were to ask you a simple question, what all do you need to make a pizza? Now, normal thing would be that yes, you need some dough, you need some flour, you need some, some salt, some oil, different stuff. But then you also need an oven. That oven is also very important. Okay, uh, and this is where the quandary is that. So when we look at the footprint of uh, any device in the world, what is its digital footprint or what is its sustainability footprint? We look at all the ingredients that come there. So, for example, even for a pizza, if you're making a pizza or let's say a pie, you need all these ingredients plus you need an oven, and that oven needs electricity, it needs maintenance, it needs different things to make an oven. All that comes into its footprint. Likewise, when we talk about these gadgets which we talk about and these devices which we work with, many of them are based on about 80% of them. Their energy comes from fossil resources. Okay, so because of that, what was happening is that about digital devices, they contribute to about 3 to 4% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. That is almost similar to the airline industry. The emissions of the airline industry and our digital ecosystems are almost equivalent. Okay? So very important that we think about this as well. That this is also one aspect of our of sustainability which we generally disown. Kindly give me 1 second, please. I just need to connect my charger. Hang on a second. Just a second, please. I'll just be back in a second. Yep.
Brother Umar has given us a lot to think about. Subhanallah, the fact that our devices emit emissions equal to the airline industry is a little bit overwhelming to think about. And as he was talking, subhanallah, maybe one of the projects that we can have our students do is actually to try to figure out what within their classroom, where, yeah, within their classroom, how many digital devices they have just among the students in one class. If they all counted the devices in their homes and brought back the numbers, that would kind of give them some insight into how much power they actually use and how much the impact they have. And moving forward, what that means for the future of climate change and sustainability. I think Brother Umar is back.
Thank you. For some reason, I can't hear you. Sister Leela, are you there?
I am here. I'm not sure.
My apologies. I can't hear you.
I can hear you. I don't know if you can
Great.
see my
Okay,
thumbs up.
let's go back to our presentation. Zara charge nahi ho raha ji. Charge karo. Okay, so I have a question for all of you, and I'm going to, if you could go back to the, uh, yes, if you could go back to the presentation, all right? Hang on a second. Let me. Just a second, please. For some reason, my mouse is misbehaving, and I can't move it to the next one. Okay, this is my next question for all of you, for the audience. That which category of equipment results in, do you think results in the most greenhouse gas emissions? So, for example, we have the user equipment, we have some sort of network. So we talked about networks to get us, to get this communication across. We have electronic device, lots of cables. Plus, we have data centers. Now, which category of equipment do you think results in the most greenhouse gas emissions? If you could just come up with give your feedback for that.
What are data centers? Can you expand a little bit on what that includes? Is there on
Okay.
that?
Just to, if you could go back to my PowerPoint presentation, please. Yeah, if it's possible. Yeah, please go there. Yeah. Now, this is really amazing is that our digital equipment, which we use as users, that has a bigger contribution to the greenhouse gas emissions. Our data centers, our network infrastructures, they still have a smaller footprint. But because there is such an enormity of our devices, I mean, billions and billions of devices which are in use, and which this rat race just goes on, we just keep on buying new and new devices. And that is why their greenhouse gas emissions just keeps on going on and on. All right. So this is something which we need to think about. Okay. Let's move on to the next question. And let me just ask you this question. Let's not go to that, what do you say, that survey, but just think of this for a second. These phones which we have, a simple smartphone, how many metals do you think are in your phone? Just think about this in your mind. Okay. So let me give you, for example, an idea. Let's say there are about 10 metals, 20 metals, 50 metals. Think about it. Okay. Just think about it for 5 seconds. So if you come up with a number in your mind, let me open this up for you. So one iPhone requires about 46 elements. It really is amazing how this, it works. I mean, and if you look at it, I mean, these instruments seem so innocuous, so innocent, but again, the amount of elements which are required to make them run is really, really amazing. And the way they are mined, the places where they come from, it's really mind-boggling. So, I mean, it's always amazed me is that we talk about blood diamonds, we talk about crimson copper. We always think that these come from places where people work in some really subhuman conditions. But many of these elements which are found in our phones, they also have similar beginnings. Right? But we never pay attention to that. That is one aspect which is generally disowned. Okay? Many of these elements are what are called as rare earth metals elements, and they're found in rare places on the earth. And the way they are governed, the socio-politics which happen because of that, the geopolitics which happens because of that. So, for example, right now there's a Cold War happening between China and the USA over access to the procurement of these minerals, which are rare earths. Many of them are in China, And there's a lot of there's a cold war happening because of that. Likewise, in many other parts of the world, people are working in subhuman conditions. But for example, a few days ago, I was having a look at an article where one country has sued Apple, and what they're saying is that the elements which are in the Apple iPhone, they come from a source where there are some really substandard, standards of living and standards of work in the mines which are over there, and they're suing them. And I think this will set an example for others as well, that we need to look at where these elements are coming from. So it's one more reason why we should look at that, why it's important that we think about our digital devices and in terms of sustainability as well. Okay, another aspect of this, and that is that so 1 kilogram a laptop, which we have, most of us have laptops, but behind those laptops, there is a very sad story. Okay? There are several thousands of liters of water which are used to make it up. There are dozens of kilograms of chemical substances which go into making it up. I mean, hundreds of kilograms of fossil fuels which go into it, plus hundreds of kilograms of minerals which get together, and eventually we get up the innocuous laptop which we use. So really, really amazing what is happening, and we need to have dialogues within our communities. We need to have dialogue sometimes even within our schools. Tell our kids also that this is the background of the digital devices which we work with. All right? And finally, there's also something about the end of use. So what happens when our digital devices come to an end, their life? What happens? Usually many of them are lying about in our cupboards or in our drawers. We do not, we don't donate them, or we just place them, or perhaps sell them. Another aspect of this is also that the end of use life is actually decreasing. So I remember when I bought my first computer in the 80s and the 90s, I remember they used to have a really long life. So if there needed to be an upgrade, we just used to upgrade the RAM or upgrade some chip over there, or just make some minor changes within a computer, and those computers would last for 5, 6, 7 years. Now what has happened is that these laptops and computers, they last only for 4 years. Just ask yourself this question: the phone which you have right now, how long do you think that would last? Just think about this for the next 5 odd seconds. How long do you think your last smartphone lasted? So when I work with youngsters, their thing is they need to change their phone almost every year. There is so much peer pressure on them that they need to upgrade their phone to the latest one. They, or because people are playing a game, or they're, they need to update the software. So usually in 1 year or 2 years, they need to change their phones. So we are seeing this trend as well, which is coming, and this also perhaps need to be addressed. All right. And finally, this is something which is happening in every house on planet Earth: the mental health aspects which are associated with these digital devices. It is really amazing. Our kids, I mean, it's like people sit down on a dining table. Each one has his own phone. Each one is working on his or her own, in a life of their own, in a cocoon of their own. They have no clue what is happening to the people who are sitting just right there next to them. It's a serious mental health issue. The issues around, anxiety, people who are hooked to the social media, and, if you don't get a thumbs up, or you don't get a, emoji of a star, there's so much anxiety. Families within themselves who are being destroyed from within, because everybody's on their digital devices pretending to be working. And the funny thing is that productivity has actually come down. All of us are just sitting in front of our devices, our laptops, our tabs, our phones, with the perception that perhaps we are doing some useful work, but productivity has actually come down drastically. So these are some foods for thought. I mean, we could go on and on. Uh, But these were some aspects which I wanted to bring to the fore through this particular forum. At the end of the day, I'm talking to people who are associated with schools, and it's really amazing how different people from different time zones, from different who are born at different points in time, what are their views about digital devices. Our children who are working with now are digital natives. They are born with the internet tied to their umbilical cord. So they live and die with their digital devices, with the social media. Very, very important that we have these dialogues with them as well, try to sensitize them about these issues as well. So, Sister Leela, this
Yes.
is most of what I had to say. And if you have any question, if the audience has any question, I would love to address them. But I think this explains the crux of what I wanted to talk about. And there's a lot that could be said, but I think
Yes.
less is more. All right.
You've given us, yes, Jazakallah khair. You've given us so
For
much.
some reason, Sister Leela, I cannot hear you. I don't know why that is so, but could you kindly see if it's muted?
Can you hear me?
The issue is.
Yes, I can hear you.
Brother, could you also, for some reason, I cannot hear you.
Both of us, you can't hear us? I think he has some speaker issues, I think.
Right now.
Can you hear me now?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to log off and log on. Just give me a minute, please.
Okay. So Brother Umar has given us a great deal to think about. SubhanAllah, we so often focus on teaching our children the past and understanding where we come from that we don't talk a lot about the future or even the present. Maybe just one of the things that he talked about is the number of elements that it takes to put a phone on iPhone together. Where do those elements come from? How do they impact the countries and the people where they are mined? And maybe we need to focus more on making sure that our children and ourselves are not just passive consumers. And understanding, there's a demand for this iPhone, and children are so attached to these devices. Maybe helping them understand what it takes to make this device, where it comes from, what impact it has on the planet, what impact it has on people. And just the questions that you asked, Brother Ahmad, are really, really telling. I think even if we introduced just those questions and had our students just do a little bit of research, like I said before, if a classroom of students of 20, like you said, did a research project on how many devices they have among themselves and what their impact is, right? And again, like the passive consumer, we are the world where we live in a world where consumerism is the priority, right? Everything is about what can I buy, what can I get? And as Muslims, we really need to shift away from that, because that is not who we are as Muslims. Can you talk a little bit about what factors impact how we should think about the future? What trends we should be looking for? What are the components that impact future planning or future thinking?
Oh, that's a great question. Thing is, if it's in the news, then it's not the future. That's the thumbnail. That's a rule of thumb. If it's in the news, then it is no longer the future. You're actually living with it. You're surviving with it. So what you would actually be looking at is, some nerd who's come up with some idea, something in science fiction, some obsolete blog. Somebody's talking something which seems so absurd right now, but over time it becomes part and parcel of our lives. We live that life, something. So for example, this thing about, we recently had this phenomena called COVID. I hope you know about it as well. Okay. So all of us lived it, and this was something which has been talked about for the past 15 years in different journals. There were science fiction writers who were imagining such a world. So lots of work which was happening before that, and then all of a sudden COVID happened, and people were like, "Wow, what happened?" But there was, there were warnings before that as well that such a pandemic could happen. And I'm afraid, my fear of the future is that what you're seeing now is that these zoonotic diseases, so for example, diseases which transmitted from animals to human beings, their intensity is increasing over time, and the geographical area in which they have influence is increasing over time. So we just saw this with COVID. My fear of the future is what happens. Are we prepared for the next pandemic? May Allah, prevent us from it, and may Allah make it easy for all of us. But this is something which we really live with. Likewise, for the topic for today, let's say in terms of digital devices, it's very, very important that we have our dialogues with our kids today. I mean, I've given some issues that some points which I thought were very useful, especially because we're talking to people from Islamic schools. Yes, we need to rethink consumerism. Why do I need the latest phone? My phone is working great now. Why do I need the latest iPhone or the latest equipment? Why do I need that? Why can't I just repair it or upgrade it? Or that's the thinking which we need to bring in our schools as well. I also think that in terms of sustainability, we need to have a stronger voice from our Islamic schools, a stronger voice from our mimbar or mihrab, from our ulama. Right now, it's just like somebody else is dictating. The people who are the cause of the problem are telling us the panicky as well. We need to do this. Subhanallah, where is our voice? I mean, if the followers of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we say that there is, the solution for every issue in our deen. Why is our voice not there? Why isn't it being heard? So I think we need more of those voices as well. And this is one disowned issue in terms of digital devices. I think we need to have those dialogues with our teachers, with our kids as well. And it would be a great school project, by the way. If anybody's interested, I would love to do such a project with schools as well. Yeah. What do you
Inshallah, we'll share your contact information in the chat. You bring up another excellent point. As Muslims, we're proactive, right? We don't deal with the problem after it occurs. Our deen is all about being preventative, right, and proactive. And I think one of the elements that we need to think about is how we teach in our Islamic schools, rather than just kind of absorbing what the rest of the world's telling us and kind of regurgitating, is that we should be at the forefront, like you said, encouraging our students to be the thinkers and the problem solvers. What would be something you would recommend that we do in our Islamic schools to get ourselves more thinking about the future, being proactive? What you showed us is really important, and it's a splice. But what would your advice for us as Muslim educators be, and how we think about teaching and how we think about education?
Well, I said earlier that we spend a lot of time on the past, lots of time on history. So perhaps some time on the future as well. And let's, very beginnings, very simple way to ask this is, what do you think is going to happen? So ask those kids around us, now, how are they looking at the future? And you'll be really amazed at what our kids can bring to the table. I mean, their viewpoint, they are digital natives, the way they interact with the world, the way they are seeing the world, it is really amazing. We think that we, with our experience, with our, with maturity, looking at the world, but it's their world. You see, I keep saying this again and again. We are creating a world for our kids. So why not ask them, what do you think should be done? Perhaps ask them as well, what sort of a future do you imagine? So I remember a few years ago, there was this competition in Australia where they were visualizing, cities of the future. So lots of people, they came up with, these pictures about those big, big buildings and flying saucers and all this stuff. And there was this kid who came up and said, like, where are the playgrounds? Where are the parks? Where are some cycling places? Where do we play? It was like, wow, we never thought about that. So then they brought the kids in there in the room as well, said, okay, it's your future. Tell us what we should incorporate in there as well. And it's really amazing what perspectives they bring in. So that is a very simple thing which almost anybody can do in their classroom. So a maths teacher, a physics teacher, they could perhaps ask their kids, all right, this is what was the past. What do you guys think should happen? Very simple thing which you could introduce into our schools, doesn't cost much, a penny. We can do that. Second thing, we are the followers of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And our Holy Quran is an amazing, lots of stories which can bring from there as well, that how our messengers, how there are stories of anticipation in the Holy Quran as well. I'll just mention one right now. So if you remember the story of Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam, he interpreted the dream of the king that there's going to be 7 years of plenty, and that there are going to be 7 years in which there's going to be a scarcity and drought. So in those 7 years of plenty, he prepared for the time where there's going to be scarcity. So thinking about the future when you have plenty, think about those times, those scenarios when you will not have a lot. So lots of stories like these are there in the Holy Quran as well. So what are the stories about anticipation? The truce at Hudaybiyah. Many Sahaba at that time, they thought that this was the terms were not conducive for Muslims. But Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he had his own wisdom, his own anticipation. And it's like, no, these are going to be fine for us as well. So how do Muslims anticipate? There are lots of lessons in the Quran, in our hadith, in the stories of our Salaf Salihin. We could learn from that as well. Feel pride of that as well. And yes, then let's face. So these are two things which I'll just leave it here. There are lots of things which can be said, but two really low-hanging fruit which anybody can do in their school and their organization. What do you mean?
Very wise advice. So ask your students what they what they want to see in the
Yeah.
future and what they think will happen in the future. And I love the connection. Yes, absolutely. The Quran and the Sunnah have a lot of predictions about what's going to happen and preparing for that. So that's an excellent way to bring in the principles of Islamic teachings. So I would let me see if there are any questions from the audience in the chat. Inshallah, if you have any questions for Brother Omar, please put them in the chat. Can you also tell us what kinds of things that you do in classrooms? I know that you've done a lot of work more recently when you started with Kidding the Future, which I love the name, by the way, Kidding the Future. Can you give us some examples of some of the projects that you've done with students and what you've learned when listening to children?
What I learned is that their perspectives are amazing, out of this world. You'll be like, yeah. I mean, I'll just share two examples. Uh, Brother Hashir Zubair is over here. He gave me the opportunity to come to his school at the Unity International. Madam Subi is over there. They did a wonderful job, brought the kids in. So what we did was that we brought the SDGs, and he said, okay, folks, look at your local context, pick up a particular SDG, see what resonates with you, and we can then work on that particular SDG from a local context. So I'm reminded there was this group of girls, who picked up SDG number 17. It's got something to do with institutions of governance and law. And I was like, wow, such a boring topic. You could have come up with some hot topics like, climate change or life underwater or something hot. So I went to them and said, ladies, you've chosen this topic. So why do you want this to work on this topic? And their reply was like, Uncle, you're the one who told us that all the SDGs are interconnected. So if we had this SDG in our country, the rest of the SDGs would take care of themselves.
Wow.
Like, wow. So,
Wow.
Subhanallah. Look at their insights. We're talking about kids between the classes of class 5 to class 8. All right. My last thing which we did with them, we were exploring that how, so some kids looked at, education. So one of the answers came, how do we achieve that, was that let's have a second shift in our school. So okay, that's a great idea. So we do something called mind mapping, or making the futures. If we implement this thing, what are going to be some of the repercussions? What are going to be some of the impacts of that? Wow. So the kids then came up, okay, if we have a second shift, okay, then the drivers can send their kids to school. Or mom, then she'll have more time. You can have some people can have extra. One of the kids, he said, what's going to happen is, because they know that the thieves will know that the people are not there in the evening as well, we're going to have lots of robberies as well. And I was like, wow, where did that come from? But you see, the thing is, the future, thinking about the future is all about the imagination, opening up our imagination. We continuously put some sort of reins to it. We continuously contain ourselves. The more we grow up, we look at it through different platforms, through different lenses. Kids, their imagination right now is, they're looking at the world from a very different lens. If we can bring that to the fore, I think that we could do a great job. I mean, I'll just end this with this your particular question with this, that this is the crux of futures thinking, that a flower blossoms twice. The first time it is in the mind of the gardener, the second time when it actually blossoms. We should let them blossom in their mind. I think the reality will take care of itself, inshallah.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I think you're absolutely right. We're constantly trying to put our children, we're always telling them things and how to do things and putting them in a box. And we need to let them, give them the freedom to be creative thinkers. And I love the analogy of the gardener. Jazakallah khair. It's been really eye-opening. I've learned something today. Again, I love when you said something about where we always think that we have so much experience and we have wisdom and we want to impart it. We really just need to listen more to our children as well. Inshallah. So, Jazakallah khair for this enlightening topic. And I encourage our schools to reach out to Brother Omar, because kidding the future is a fascinating topic and way to look at education. Jazakallah khair for joining us today and sharing your wisdom with us. Inshallah, we look forward to hearing about your future endeavors with children.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Inshallah, we will look forward to that.
All right.
Jazakallah, and thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate would like to thank everybody at GIS who helped me, who let me have this dialogue. Madam, thank you very much for your tireless efforts behind the scenes, for making this a possibility, and for the other brothers who are there as well. Jazakallah, everybody. And I look forward to future collaborations as well, inshallah.
Inshallah. All right. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Wa alaikum assalam. Assalamu alaikum.